Sergeant Arms, please secure the doors. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, we have this afternoon, who knows what time it is these days, the Rabbi Shalom Zircon, guest of the distinguished Senator.
Good morning. This Saturday night, Passover begins. The opening of the Seder begins with a prayer or an invitation. Whoever is hungry, come and eat. When and where this custom began, there were many people who were hungry and could be expected to accept that invitation. We thank God that today in the United States of America, for the most part, actual hunger no longer exists. Nowadays, food insecurity means that someone doesn't know today where tomorrow's dinner is coming from, but one way or another, it will come. God has blessed us with such abundance that we unfortunately have obesity amongst us, while malnutrition seems to be confined to the affluent, and yet we still have hunger. Nearly 3,000 years ago, the prophet Amos predicted, "Days are coming, says the Lord, when I will send famine into the land, not a famine for bread, nor a thirst for water, but to hear the word of God." The Lubavitcher Rebbe, who celebrates his 120th birthday today, taught that those days are here, and we are surrounded by people who have all the food they need, and yet hunger and thirst for knowledge, for contentment, for they don't know what, because really what they are hungry for is God. And the ancient invitation goes out to them. Whoever is hungry, come and eat. Whoever is in need, come and learn. Almighty God, we thank you for giving us so much food that physical hunger is no longer a real problem amongst us. Now we ask you to help us satiate the famine that you have sent us. Guide our senators in their effort to create and maintain an environment of which those seeking your word can find it, free of distractions of the physical want and free of man-made barriers between us and you, our Father in heaven. Refresh us with the spirit of freedom that you proclaimed this season. Release my people and let them serve me. May we all have a happy and kosher Pesach, Chag kosher v'sameach, and let us all say, Amen.
Chair recognizes the Senator from the 42nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. That prayer was recorded last Saturday night, which was the first night of Passover, and it struck me how appropriate the prayer was not only for the first night of Passover last Saturday, but also for Good Friday, which we're celebrating today. It shows that we're all creatures under God's heaven. I move that we journalize the prayer.
Well said, and without objection, most certainly, Senator, we will journalize the Rabbi's excellent remarks and invocation during this Holy Week. All right, has everyone, Mr. Minority Leader and Chair of JPR, recorded their presence? Excellent. Clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Synod of Maryland is again in session. All right, Senators, everyone's tired. I can promise you I'm tired too. We've got a lot of work to do today. If there is any way to get out as early as possible, I know for those who practice, there's Good Friday today. There's a lot of activities. There's Passover week. There's a lot happening. But we got to get done what we got to get done. So we are going to be efficient. We're going to do the best we can. We've got a number of things on the floor this morning. We will probably try to end close to around 2 today because we're going to have to come back. The House, we just heard the bells during the invocation. They have a number of things that have to come over back to us. And so we're going to need those, and we can't adjourn today until we get some of those back over. So it's going to be a little bit flexible on the timing for this afternoon. What I'm going to try and do is find a way for us to come in as early as possible, and then we will, if we have to recess to wait, we may just do that, and then we can be done by the time we finish up with some concurrences tonight. Or this afternoon, ideally this afternoon. We'll see. But the goal is to not be here tomorrow. So then we'll be in our final week. So That's the plan. I know everyone is tired. I know everyone's spent emotionally, physically, but we're at that important point. We got to get to the finish line, and we're going to do it together. So, any other announcements? Any other announcements before we get started today?
Mr. President.
Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 35th District.
I know there's a lot on the agenda, but just for a brief moment, I wanted to comment on something that this year, the testing site here in Annapolis. From the time we go over there, we're greeted by normally a friendly trooper across the street. We go in there. The folks there have been just so friendly, so accommodating, so nice. I don't think we've really talked about that, but real quick. On this Good Friday, when I'm thinking of things I'm appreciative of, from the folks that guide you in through, to the one that runs the swab, to the person that holds the door when you're leaving, there couldn't be a nicer group of people there working than what we have. I've been very impressed by their professionalism, their kindness, and I just wanted to make that statement before we get started today, Mr. President.
Thank you so much for that observation, Senator. That the Speaker and I just sent lunch to the testing site today because they have just been so phenomenal. And so, Senator, your compliment of their incredible efforts could not be more on point. They're just fantastic over there. So kind and popped up out of nowhere. It's like a routine. So thank you, Senator, for making that observation. Couldn't agree anymore. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 36th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to add on to that, you and I were there at the same time today, and it really was a feeling of not only do they welcome us there and take care of us, but we were able to joke around with them. They have a smile on their face. They have just done such an excellent job in taking care of us. And I just want to add on one thing. I know, in this week, it's very holy for a lot of us, and we consider many of the things that we're thankful for. Every time I leave that facility, I think not that this was an inconvenience, but how lucky we are that we have this level of health care, that we are able to have a system that is set up, that helps protect us from each other, that helps to watch out to make sure that we're able to stay in this, that we're able to stay in this environment and do the work of the people. And we're very, very fortunate, Mr. President. I thank you for all that you've done to arrange all this and to keep us in a position that we could be here for the full 90 days. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And thank each person. We don't get through this unless all of us do it together. This is a collective unit, and we have been fortunate with what now? 10 days? 11 days? What are we at? 11 days to go. Whew, wow. 11 days to go. Knock on wood. We've been in a pretty decent spot. Almost there. All right. Any other announcements before we jump in? If not, without objection, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We've got a message from the House. These are Senate bills passed. Number 4, clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 7, Senator Simon Era, Courts, Court Dog Program, Veterans Treatment, Courts. Senate Bill 40,
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Next, we've got first reading House bills. This is Calendar 31. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 584, Delegate R. Watson, Public Utilities, Net Energy Metering Rules.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Those will go to the Rules Committee. All right, we've got a special order. This is the Executive Nominations Report. Clerk will read the report.
Executive Nominations Report number 8. Question is, will the Senate advise and consent to the nominations of the Executive?
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Executive Nominations Committee.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you. I move we approve the Senate executive nomination candidates that were the 7 that were passed this week. And if anyone wants to separate any, we can do that.
All right. So the chairman moves to approve report number 8. Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore and Howard counties.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to separate out nominee number 1.
I'm sorry? Number 1. No, yes, Senator wishes to separate nominee number 1. All right, Senators, take a look. Without objection, we'll vote that separately. If everyone could take a look at the list and see, we're going to take vote separately on number 1. Are there any other nominees that senators wish to separate out to vote separately? If not, all right, the question before the body is on the report number 1, but not nominee number 1. Report number 8, not nominee number 1. All right, any questions? Everyone know what we're voting on? And we'll take up nominee number 1 after this? It appears so. Any discussion on the nominees? Not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone should change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, the Senate advises and consents affirmatively to the nominations of the executive on report number 8, affirmatively. All right. Next order of business is nominee number 1. Clerk will read the nominee.
executive nominations report number 8. Will the Senate advise and consent to the nomination of nominee number 1?
All right. Question is on nominee number 1. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from College Park.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to support the committee's recommendation to confirm the nomination of Dennis Schrader as Secretary of Health. And I do this with actually quite a bit of knowledge of his performance, because I've had the opportunity, Mr. President, at your direction, to serve both on the COVID oversight work group with the House and on the vaccine oversight work group for the Senate, serving with several of our colleagues, meeting every week with Secretary Schrader, getting great staff work from the department and from us, explaining what was working and what was not working. And I defer to no one in my frustration with the chaos that this year started in terms of vaccinations. It was a mess. It was a mess for a couple of reasons. One, because the United States hadn't done anything like this before at this scale. It was a mess because the Trump administration compounded the lack of experience with chaotic decision making. Just one example, the state was told before January 20th that the federal government was saving doses for the second doses, and therefore the state didn't need to. And then it turned out, oh, well, no, they weren't saving the second doses. They would say you're going to get X number of doses this week, and you got X minus 5. It was chaos until January 20th. And so I do not blame the state for that. After January 20th, the Biden administration came in and cleaned this up. It cleaned it up. It became predictable. It became communicative. It became responsible. It took a while to do that, so it took a couple of weeks. That improved. But still, the state did not have the kind of distribution system that we needed. We didn't have a centralized place to sign up. People could not get on waiting lists. They were not making a proactive effort to get out into communities which found it difficult to drive halfway across the state or didn't have personal connections, all the stuff that every member of this Senate knows. And so at the President's direction, we worked closely with the Secretary every week to identify the problems, suggest solutions, and we thought he wasn't doing enough, the department wasn't doing enough, we held his feet to the fire. And I have to say, I've worked with a lot of cabinet secretaries over the years. And based on that experience over these months, I found Secretary Schrader to be one of the most constructive, cooperative, open secretaries I've worked with. He actually shows up for the meetings. How many of us have had committees where we can't even get the department to submit testimony? He shows up, he doesn't have all the answers, he listens to what we have to say, he doesn't do everything we want him to do, but he tries to. I'll give you the specific example, then I'll sit down. One of my biggest concerns representing Prince George's County is Prince George's County is in the back seat among the state in the percentage of folks vaccinated. We've raised that week after week after week. And so he has gone back, talked with the county, tried to identify opportunities. When we found that most of the people going to the Six Flags site in Prince George's were not from Prince George's, he worked with the county to create a waiting list so people could be assigned their place. And then within the last 2 weeks, when we still have very low vaccination rates in Prince George's County, I asked him if he could break it out by zip code. And within 2 days, I got it. And here's what it shows. It's very interesting for your own jurisdiction. Prince George's is still behind the state, which is awful, and we got to fix, and they're working on. But the zip code in Prince George's County with the highest percentage of folks vaccinated have 30% of the folks vaccinated. The zip code with the lowest have 10% vaccinated. And so on his initiative, he got with me and with the county and said, look, let's figure out how we identify what to do in those specific zip codes. That's exactly the right answer. I'm not saying that he came in knowing everything. He didn't. It was a very tough situation. But I believe that he is sincere, he's honest, he's hardworking, and I think he's trying to work with us to make this work. So I'm very happy to support confirmation of his nomination. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th District.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. The Secretary of Health is the most important person in Maryland at this time, in my opinion. He's in charge of getting the vaccinations out. He's in charge of making sure that our citizens live, and if they get sick, survive this terrible pandemic. So the most important person in government in Maryland, in my humble opinion. As my colleagues know, the African American community, the Latino community have been disproportionately affected by this pandemic. The rollout of the vaccination did not take that into effect. Nowhere were African Americans, Latino citizens prioritized for vaccination. And the governor knew this, the health department knew this, but they did not put these two groups into the priority for vaccinations. That says, let them die.
Senator.
The African American, yes, Mr. President.
Just if we could focus on the nomination.
I'm sorry?
Nominee. If we could focus the comments on the nominee, Senator.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I am passionate about this issue. The death rate among African Americans is so high, it allowed 3 years off the longevity, just the corona pandemic infections, 3 years off the lives of African Americans nationally. It's affected my community, my friends, my family in such a huge way. And this has to do with the health department and the state of Maryland taking this seriously. Nowhere did they prioritize the people suffering most from this pandemic. In stepped the Senate of Maryland with the opportunity to confirm the nominee for Health Secretary. And I must say that this body, this president, took it serious. Met every Monday with the vaccine work group to influence, to make a change in the trajectory of this governor and the health department. And I must say, president of this body has made a big difference, because in my district, we got a mass vaccination site. In my district, we have the attention, and throughout so many other communities in Maryland. In spite of that, 5%, a couple weeks ago, reported of the vaccinated individuals in my county, well, from the mass vaccination site in my county, were going to residents of my county. 5%. Out-of-state folks got more vaccinations than residents of Charles County. We still need the health department to take this serious and to have policies and registrations where priority is given to those who are suffering the most. I lost my best friend, one of my best friends in Charles County, to corona a couple months ago. I take this serious. It's affecting us. So therefore, we're making progress, but we need to continue to take this serious and to monitor what is going on with the vaccination and the priority groups being prioritized. And so I do not want to change ship in the middle of a voyage. So I will vote to confirm this individual for health secretary, to know that he's working with us and he needs to take it very serious that those folks who are dying the most needs to be prioritized and to be looked out for. Thank you, Mr. President, for your patience.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 19.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise to support for Secretary of the Department of Health, Acting Secretary Dennis Schrader. I'm not a member of executive nominations, and I reached out to some of the members on the committee, including the Senate President, prior to the decision to express my support for Secretary Schrader. And my experience, my personal experience with Secretary Schrader has been nothing but exceedingly positive. He takes my calls personally. I have his cell phone number, and every single time I placed a call to him, he answered it, and he responded to the concerns that I had on behalf of constituents in my district. And without fail, it didn't matter whether it was a weekend or late at night. If I reached out, Dennis Schrader took the call and then acted on the issue that I raised with him. So I have had nothing but positive experiences with the Secretary, and I absolutely will be giving him my vote. Thank you, Mr. President, and my thanks to the Executive Nominations Committee for this decision.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Chair of the Executive Nominations Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very short. First, I want to thank you for allowing me to serve on that committee. Also, we met for, I haven't counted, but 10 or 11 weeks every Monday. The Secretary showed up, as was stated, every Monday. I think we hit him hard with a lot of questions and comments, and I think we saw improvements every week along the way. I also spoke with him privately a couple of times and asked him to do certain things, including reaching out to the minority community and my community, and which he did. And I think there are some problems at the health department that need working on. I feel that he's going to try to work on them. He's been very responsive, and I know that he had pressures from other directions, despite some things we asked. But I think at this point, and with the amount of time left, he has more than earned the opportunity to serve as Secretary for the rest of this term. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, are there any further senators who wish to speak? Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to thank the Governor and the Acting Secretary for the job that they've done since this pandemic has started. It's the most important issue we've been dealing with, and this is a once-in-a-100-year event. No one could have prepared us for what came, and I will commend the Acting Secretary as he was going through this process, there were areas for improvement. He saw some of them came from this body and from others, and he worked in a bipartisan manner because we had one common goal, and that was to help the people of Maryland. And he's been very responsive. You've heard it from both sides, and I've met with him personally. He probably met with a lot of you personally to make sure this went well. And while the senator from Charles County is a good friend, I can guarantee from the governor down to every single state employee, none of them said let them die. I think that's unfair and it's inaccurate, and our words matter. And I'm sure that they all focused on making people live, and because of their actions, I believe many more people are alive today because of their actions that they put forth. I commend them for their work. I think he's done a wonderful job, and I'm going to work to confirm him on this vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to speak before we call the roll? Chair recognizes the senator from District 5.
Mr. President, thank you. And I just wanted to rise to maybe add one more note of support for the Secretary, Secretary Designee, Mr. Schrader. You know, I've had an opportunity to work with him on some issues, and, you know, he's been great to work with relative to when I have a concern. I may not always agree with every decision that he's made, or he may be giving me information I don't always necessarily want to hear all the time. He's very responsive. But one of the notes that I wanted to make specifically, too, is I think we all got a letter from former Secretary Bobby Neal. And at the end of the letter, Secretary Neal points out something I think is really important for us to remember, because the pandemic is certainly the most important health issue facing, obviously, the health department in our state. But Secretary Designee Schrader does have, and I can attest this to be true, really a mastery, a real understanding of the Medicaid waiver model, which is so important to our state. It's worth billions and billions of federal dollars, and it is I was on the Health and Government Operations Committee in the House when we agreed to start that, or we entered into that beginning arrangement. It is incredibly complex, but vitally important to the state. And so I think the technical expertise that Mr. Schrader brings cannot be overestimated. I'm thankful I'm thankful also that we have, with Operation Warp Speed, we have a vaccine that we've been able to distribute. I'm thankful for the progress that's been made. I've had issues and concerns about some of the rollout as well, but all in all, I think Secretary Schrader will do as the full secretary, fully appointed and approved by us, will do a great job, and I strongly support his nomination.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to simply cast my vote and explain my vote, but I'm going to make some observations, and because I was also a member of the work group, and I am certainly glad that some of our colleagues have been reached out to and feel as though they could have a personal relationship with the secretary and are able to get what they need for their communities from that secretary. And I've served on that committee for 11 weeks, just like everyone else, and I got my first call from the secretary 2 days ago. And every week I have put very specific questions about and conversations about the lack of a community health approach, a lack of engaging the public health professionals that we have in the state of Maryland. So it's not that I don't think he's a nice guy or that he shouldn't get an A for effort, but I believe that when we're talking about a Secretary of Health, there is a general orientation and view and approach to securing the public health that we found lacking. Now again, that is not to say that it's not evolved, that I can actually see the fact that I got a call 2 days before I was scheduled to vote on his nomination as perhaps a good indication that we can work together in the future, because I suspect that he will be nominated. But I do not believe that while it might not have been, we might not have liked the words that the good senator from Charles County expressed, it has been the case that has been very clear that the strategy that this administration chose to distribute the vaccine put our seniors at risk, when we're looking for consultants to help them, did not include diversity programs in their planning process until 11 weeks, and then just simply hired, one person to sort of carry a mobile vaccine around. So again, this body, I'm just saying that as we nominate him, be aware that while you may feel that you have a personal relationship and aware that some communities are met, that because of his training, his background, there is not the type of public health approach, community engagement, and experience with diversity that is needed in a leader of a health department in Maryland. So it is not simply about being a good facilities guy. It's not simply about being someone that can show up at a vaccine site. It is about being able to work with the extensive public health systems that we have in this state and those resources, and making sure that every single Maryland, every single child has access to that system. This secretary does not have that broad view. We are going to need to bring that to him and insist that he have them. Thank you for this opportunity to make some observations.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from District 40.
Thank you, Mr. President. And like my colleague from the 43rd, I didn't plan on standing up today, but I felt compelled to do so. She expressed a lot of the same feelings that I had. I'm going to support the nomination of the secretary as I did in the committee, but there's been on several occasions where I've reached out to the secretary directly and having gotten a response, asked for his attendance or there of his staff for community meetings and haven't gotten a response. And it wasn't until the executive nominations process came up and the outreach was made to meet with it. And so I know that the secretary is capable. He has a team of very capable professionals that work with him. I think going forward, he has an opportunity to show that same level of commitment. I've sat on Senate Finance for 3 years. And in all of those times when he was identified by the agency as the subject matter expert, oftentimes he was a no-show. And so I think in having a confidence of this body in his nomination and his expressed commitment to be more responsible, I hope, and I know that they're listening, that he would take this opportunity going forward. But I didn't want us to leave here thinking that everything was rosy and great and he was the most responsible person, because that has not been my experience. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who wish to speak who have not yet spoken? If not, the chair recognizes the senator from Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County.
Like my friend from District 43, I also was going to wait and just explain my vote, but just so there's not the 2-minute constraint, but I will be brief. Virtually every Friday for it's about a year, I have been on a phone call with my county executive and county council and department heads. And virtually every week, I hear complaints about, yep, we don't know what the state is doing. Nope, we haven't heard from the governor. Nope, we didn't know about the new tighter restrictions or looser restrictions or new regulations. Nope, all they've done is criticize or surprise us. We hear about it when the rest of the world does at press conferences. I'm going to support Secretary Schrader largely because I'm hopeful that the trajectory of improvement will continue, and largely because he's got some excellent staff. And I really want to give a shout out by name to Webster Yee, who calls 7 days a week at all hours and is super responsive. And I just think we don't give enough credit to, so I think we've all had that experience with Webster. So I am going to vote green in hopes for better collaboration, better communication, and hopes for the future that we can get rid of this as we continue to face other health challenges. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 44.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I listen to everyone's comments, it's been pretty confusing for me. I mean, I came here with an open mind, trying to figure out, because I've had the opportunity to observe how the rollout for the vaccinations have been going as well. And I've been concerned with how this state has handled some of these items. So, I mean, I've never had any interaction with the secretary. I do work
with some of his staff members because we had a real good relationship. So I was hoping to come to the floor today to really get some background and more of an understanding of maybe how I should cast my vote. And honestly, I'm more confused than what I was going in because I'm hearing everyone talk about what sounds like a number of missteps, wrong moves, and the like. But then I'm hearing, but we're going to vote for him anyway. So I'm confused. And if anyone else has any other stories to tell, look, I'm listening. I'm listening.
All right, thank you, Senator. All right, Chair recognizes the Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, I'm confused too. And I've been following this for a while, and I'm on executive nominations. And last week I abstained because I was still confused. I feel between the rock and the hard place. I truly do. I think he's a nice guy. And he's been responsive. He's been reactive. But I'm not sure I've seen the proactiveness of seeing the big picture 2 months, 4 months, 6 months down the pike. That concerns me. I also understand if he's rejected, someone comes in for 18 months who has no clue that we're starting over. You know, and I hate to call it the lesser of two evils. I also have to say the first 2 months were a disaster. The rollout was pathetic. You know, we all said it should be centralized. It was chaos, and as the senator from Rockville and Gaithersburg said, the 24 health officers were dumbfounded. I mean dumbfounded. And even 2 weeks ago when the announcement was made at the end of the meeting, the policy was changing, no debate, no discussion. I mean, that is unbelievable. Just yesterday or the day before, the governor's flack, when asked about the uptick, he said, and the question was, is there any relationship between going to 100% opening up retail and restaurants? He said no. I think that's nuts. And I guess my question is the nominee going to act independently and talk truth to power or be a flunky for the governor? You know, because my concern has been that politics has led a lot of the recovery and not public health. And, you know, I've gotten to trust the local health officers a hell of a lot, I got to tell you. It's been left to them to lead. And Dr. Gales in Montgomery County and Ernest in our county, in Prince George's County, a lot of people have done great work. But they've had to do it on their own. And I'd say the same thing is true with the 24 superintendents. There's a parallel here, ladies and gentlemen. There's been no leadership on education at all since this pandemic hit. So the question comes to us, will he act independently? Will he do what's right? And if he's told to do something that's wrong, will he step aside and say, I ain't going to do it? I don't know the answer to that. I also don't know what will follow if we reject him. I mean, is it downhill from here? I don't know the answer to that. So, Senator, you know, I'm so torn on this. Even during the discussion, I've gone from green to red in my head, as I think many of us. You know, and I don't have an answer, and I don't want to be the leader on this. I really don't, because I don't know what is the best choice. But, you know, the more I talk, the more I think I'm going to go green. But I think there are some lessons here in terms of who we appoint, how independent they are, how much do they stand up, and how principled they are. That if they don't like what's going on the second floor, they say, I'm not going along with this game. Because it's been irresponsible in many, many ways, and it's been driven by politics and not by health. So I can only say, I'm going to vote green, and I'm presenting a charge to Mr. Schrader. Please do what's right. You know, we've had to rely on him responding to legislators. The Secretary of Health, with all his or her resources, shouldn't have to rely on the legislature. They should have the breadth and the knowledge to do it themselves because they know what to do. Or go to the 24 health officers and say, what the hell should I do? That hasn't been happening. I hope it does. I'm going to vote green with my fingers crossed. And I hate to do that because public lives are at risk here. But I just don't know if we reject him, what else is left, and putting a newbie there with 18 months left who is going to have to get reacquainted. So I, with reservation, will be voting green, and I probably didn't give you any more clarity, and I probably confused my own self by speaking. But thank you for the prompt question.
Chair recognizes Senator Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am not standing up to defend anyone in this whole discussion, but if you look at where we were a year ago and all of the unknown that was there and the unknown that has been there really through the whole year, coming up with a vaccine, trying to get it out to everybody, trying to get everybody tested. Yes, I'm sure there were some mistakes made, but I think because of the fact that we've never been through this, any of us, I think that we have really come out of this well, or are coming out of it well. We've had a couple different leaders in the health department, and I just think that they have done the absolute best that they can do. And like I said, I think they've probably made some mistakes. I think we've probably made a mistake or two in our life. But I will be voting green because I just think that Mr. Schrader is the guy to lead us through the next 18 months.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from District 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I get up and support Dennis Schrader for this position because let's think about what he and this department have gone through in this last year. A pandemic like we've never had before, or I guess 100 years ago, that nobody realized how much infrastructure it was going to take to build this thing, to get this thing going. There's a saying of, you're flying the airplane as you build it. That's what this department has done. Every day they're having to improve what they did yesterday. Did they make mistakes? Absolutely. They're doing their best. And as the senator from College Park said, on the Fed side, the goalposts are changing almost daily, where they're saying, hey, you got to do this. So that's what they aim for. Tomorrow, the goals changed. They're doing their best. They are overwhelmed. And I look at the Senate, what we have done here, and what the Senate president and others did to make sure that we were all safe with our plexiglass, our testing, and everything else. They did it when we weren't here to put it all together, to figure it out. They were able to work through it and do it in a systematic way. So, hey, let's work out the kinks. Let's do what's called sea trial and let's make sure it works. So when we got here, we didn't have problems. This department has not done that. They can't, because they're out there doing this every day while people are getting tested, changing, hey, this didn't work today, let's change it for tomorrow. That's why I'm supporting this this secretary, because he understands it, he gets it. I've called him. Sometimes he's called me back. Other times he's had other people call me back. Because, again, they're overwhelmed. I don't care who calls me as long as they fix the problem that I called about, and that's what they're doing. I get calls from Webster Yee. I get calls from Dr. Walford when I call. It's making sure they're getting it done, which they are. So for those reasons, I'll happily be supporting Dennis. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since my colleague from District 44 encouraged us to share stories, I actually bring maybe a more of a personal perspective that I did want to share. I've known Dennis Schrader since the Ehrlich administration. I was a deputy chief of staff, and we came in, and at that point, Governor Ehrlich wanted to put in a Homeland Security structure for the state of Maryland. This was after September 11th, and as you may or may not know, I was at the Pentagon then, and one of the reasons I was willing to leave that position and come to the state of Maryland is Governor Ehrlich asked me if I would be involved in putting the Homeland Security infrastructure in place. And in that process, he allowed me to give recommendations on who his first Homeland Security director would be. And the recommendation after we did a lot of research was Dennis Schrader. And we convinced Dennis Schrader to leave the University of Maryland medical systems to come and to, obviously take a huge pay cut, come into state service and take on this job. And I can tell you, questions were raised about the complexities of understanding federal, state, local, the coordination, the funding sources. Dennis Schrader was on point, on lead with that, and totally maximized that position and maximized it to the benefit of Maryland. And I can look you in the eye and tell you that he puts the people of Maryland is his top priority. The health and safety and well-being of the people of Maryland are his top priority, and he has the knowledge, the background, and the expertise to do this job. And I wanted to share that personally, and I am proud to support and vote for his confirmation.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 34. 34.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm not an expert in COVID. I would be totally unqualified to try to gauge Acting Secretary's performance in his duties with regard to COVID. But one thing I do know from knowing Dennis Schrader is that if mistakes were made, they were not because of politics or malevolence or cowardice. He's one of the finest men I know, and I just I'm proud to vote green on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, I think we've got it. The question
President.
is, yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 33rd District.
Thank you very much. I just want to follow up on our Senator from Ocean City. I've known Dennis about 25 years, and he tells an interesting story about his confirmation in front of the United States Senate. He had to go down to D.C. and present himself for confirmation. And who was there at the door to greet him but United States Senator Ben Cardin? And Ben stood in front of, our friend Ben stood in front of the committee and talked about Dennis's strengths, his personality, his perseverance. I stand next to Senator Cardin and also say yes to Dennis Schrader. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, all right. Question before the body is whether... yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Howard and Baltimore counties.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also, like my colleague from Baltimore City, was not planning to get up to speak about this nominee, but as a member of the work group, I think it's important to also set the record straight on a few things and highlight a few things as well. And this is not to impugn the character of Mr. Schrader, and I think I echo the sentiments from many of my colleagues that he has been, that he has reached out to folks and he has been responsive at times, and he does work hard and has attended a lot of these work group meetings. And I appreciate the Senate President's effort initially to put these vaccine oversight work group meetings in place, because there was nothing more important in getting Marylanders vaccinated than this. And while there have been improvements, I think the state can do better. And I think we can do better on a few counts. Number one, there's just been a lack of there's been a lot of inconsistencies in what the acting secretary has conveyed to us as part of the work group. And just to give a few examples, there was an initial statement that there was no need for a single registration portal because it could lead to many points of failure. And yet, at the pressing of the vaccine oversight work group, we now have a single registration portal because of our efforts. And also, the acting secretary had contended that there was no need initially for mass vaccination sites. Because of the vaccine oversight work group efforts, now there are mass vaccination sites. He initially said that Marylanders should try to sign up. He wasn't sure where Marylanders should try to sign up, that they should figure it out. And then he later told them that they should sign up in multiple places, and then once they got vaccinated, they should remove themselves from those lists. He initially blamed moving very quickly from phase 1B to 1C on the federal government, on citing the fact that the feds want us to move from 1B to 1C within the span of 1 week, opening up a huge demand for vaccines when the supply simply wasn't there. And then when that story fell through, he attributed it to trying to improve equity. So, and that was months later that he attributed the move from 1B to 1C to an effort to improve equity. He initially said that that hospitals and health systems should not hold back for second doses, then they should, then they shouldn't. Again, confusion on multiple levels. He contended that the equitable distribution of the vaccine was the state's top priority. Then the health department created a formula that included initial buckets that ended up favoring less populated counties over more populated ones. And that's why, at the end of this, Anne Arundel County received a third the number of vaccines as Kent County per capita, per rata, in their distribution. He initially said that racial disparity wasn't due to access, but due to hesitancy, when many public health leaders had contended that this was not true. This was because there wasn't specific outreach to minority and impoverished communities to be able to access the vaccine. And this is just a snapshot of the various inconsistencies that have occurred over the last few months. And particularly during a time of a global pandemic, we need consistency and credibility from the health department, and particularly from the top of the health department, from the secretary. And I believe that we can only vote on what we've seen and the record that we've seen. And I'm disappointed by that record. And with all due reference to my chairman, I appreciate those sentiments, but I also believe that we have to vote on the candidate that's before us and not out of fear of the candidate that could come before us. And so I'm also concerned in closing about what I've heard from local health departments, and to speak to my colleague from Baltimore County, that in talking to many health officers who are the boots on the ground doing the incredibly hard work day in, day out of trying to administer the vaccine, contact trace, and test their residents, that the health departments feel like they're at war with the Maryland Department of Health. They feel that the state health department is not responsive to them. They believe that they are not receiving timely information, that the communications from the state to the local health departments is unidirectional, only downward, that there is no bi-directional communication and input being provided to the Maryland Department of Health. And so, for all of those reasons, I am deeply concerned about this nominee. I hope that the health department will continue to see progress, but from what I've seen to date, I cannot support this nominee, and I believe that Maryland would deserve better.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Senator from District 10.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. My concern regarding the health department, my greatest concern right now, hasn't been mentioned so far today. I hadn't planned to speak. But right now we have a second major statewide crisis. The public mental health system is in total chaos in Maryland. And the pandemic only made it worse because we changed contractors to do the auditing and the payments to the public mental health services right during the middle of this pandemic. The people aren't being paid, or they're not being paid correctly. Some are getting too much occasionally. Many aren't being paid timely, and some haven't gotten anything practically. The ASO issue is alive. It's a terrible situation. And at the moment, I'm speaking because I hope the secretary nominee is listening. This must be attended to. When we spoke the other night about it at the regular meeting of the executive nominations, it was not responded to. But we don't have one health crisis. We have many more people in depression and in psychosis because of the extra impact of the pandemic. We, for people who are on Medicaid, are having to pay, and other citizens through federal funds for their care. We have this second crisis. Nothing's being done. I'm hoping, and the reason I'm going to vote for this nominee, I think he's a nice human being, but mainly because we don't have time to do another search. The term remaining is not that long. We do need to keep some continuity and to move forward and look beyond this administration for help. But we need his help and his coordination on this second issue, and right now. So I would ask you to vote for him. I think it would be foolhardy of us to do nothing now and to wait for another nominee to be named and to start from scratch again. But we have thousands and thousands of Marylanders suffering. We have public mental health agencies trying to serve them, and they are falling apart from an auditing and accounting perspective because of what isn't being done from the Maryland Department of Health to straighten it out, and to get us somebody instead of the current vendor who can't do the job. So I won't say more, but I hope everybody will consider that as we take our vote.
Thank you very much, Senator. All right, question is on the nominee number one. Will the Senate advise and consent to the nomination? If there's no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. Chair recognizes Senator from 21st District has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you. Let me vote first. There we go. I apologize for taking a couple more minutes of my colleague's time. I want to address the comments that have been made. The criticism of my colleague from Charles County, my colleague from Baltimore City, my colleague from Howard County. I agree with them 100%. It has been chaotic. There have been all kinds of problems. They did not prioritize reaching the people who were hurt most. We've talked about that over and over and over again. We pushed that in our calls. We're going to continue to push it. What they did was wrong. It was chaotic. But the decision, and this goes to the confusion that a couple of my colleagues had, those decisions were made on the second floor. Those decisions were made on the second floor. The federal government doesn't control the priorities. The Secretary of Health doesn't control the priorities. The governor controls the priorities. The governor decides when the rules are going to change. The health department, the local health departments have been terribly burdened by not being brought into the priority. That's all correct. And that is all at the governor's doorstep. It is true, and I say it every time, our governor is no Donald Trump. That doesn't mean he's doing a good job managing the pandemic. He's not. I'm voting for Dennis Schrader because I think in his job, under this governor, I think he's doing the best he can. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 11 has 2 minutes to explain her vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Honestly, I walked in like my colleague from Baltimore City, Baltimore County, really struggling with how to vote today. I do not know the acting secretary. I have a lot of interaction with his staff, who is excellent, but who precedes him. And I have, my office has been handily served by them. But I have a lot of concerns, many of which were articulated today by colleagues. One thing that hasn't been said, what I would implore him to do, is to continue the communication with this body. Due to the president and all the people who have served on the vaccine work group, we have faithfully tuned into that every week, and we have shared that information with our constituents who listen. And so I would implore him to continue that communication with this body and to continue being responsive to the legislature as well as to the citizens who still struggle, and have so many questions about how our state is responding to the pandemic. So I cast my vote yes, but I have to say that it is with some reticence, and I will trust that we have a short time left in this administration and much to do, and I would just hope that he continues this productive improving relationship with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 30. Has 2 minutes to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like so many, I was torn between my head and my heart on this one. I have been focused like a laser the last few months on helping my constituents feel safe. And yet, so many of them are still in need and still confused, and we have not had the best of transparency and accountability when it comes to the vaccine distribution. And I say that because we are the proud home of University of Maryland and Johns Hopkins and NIH, and our constituents had a certain expectation that this was never going to be perfect, but it could have been better. We moved into 1C too quickly. We should have had a centralized distribution system. Like my colleague from Howard and Baltimore County said, the most populated counties received the fewest doses at first. Those were my constituents. And I've heard from many of them over the last few weeks about this vote, and I think I'm going to think on this one for a number of years from now and wonder if I did it the right thing. This is less a vote of confidence, like so many folks here, and more a vote of hope. And I hope he will continue to work with this body. I hope he will continue to seek the counsel of the folks in this room to improve the system for everybody we represent. We could have done better. We need to do better, and I hope that we will do better. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 44. Has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank all of my colleagues for their comments. Very helpful. I listened to the senator from District 7, and he was talking about, I used the analogy of building the plane as it's going forward, and this vote that I have is more about grace. During this Easter weekend that we have, it's about grace, and I'm hoping as well that I'm doing the right thing, because we've heard so much over the past year about the Optum system. I've heard just about the usage of the Office of Minority Health, or I should say, I mean, it hasn't been used properly, given everything that's been going on. And I'm hoping that I did do the right thing in voting and putting confidence that he's going to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the minority leader. Has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I explaining my vote, supporting the acting secretary. We're in uncharted waters. You know, it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. And, you know, I do it all the time, watching the Ravens. You know, I would have done this if I was out on the field and all that. But you know what? Lamar Jackson can do a lot better than I can, but I think I can. So it's easy to criticize. And I think we need to attack the issue instead of political leaders. It was stated here that Governor Hogan's not doing a good job managing the pandemic. I disagree completely. I think he's done an outstanding job. There are tremendous challenges. And you know what I look to? I look to the people. And you look at what the people are saying. They're saying he's doing an outstanding job, overwhelmingly outstanding. So we can make speeches on this floor, but when you go back to the people, they say he's doing an excellent job. Is he perfect? Definitely not. But he's doing a great job, and I commend him for it, and I'm glad to support the acting secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Chair, in explaining his vote. Look, as the former chair of the Executive Nominations Committee, I've thought long and hard about what the standard should be for approval in executive nominations. And the standard is that we generally should, in the structure of government, defer to the executive. That is the role. Advise and consent is a protection mechanism for the people of Maryland and for any legislature to determine whether or not someone is wholly disqualified from serving in that capacity. But the deference is and should be to the executive, because the executive deserves that responsibility to pick his or her team. It doesn't matter the party, it is about the role of government and the function and role of the legislature in that process. So, unless there are clear and obvious reasons, generally that deference would hold. This year has been different. This is one of the first times in the last 100 years that we have seen one activity be the single most important thing in all of state government. There was nothing more important over the last 7 or 12 weeks than the administration of vaccines in the state of Maryland. And when we knew that the acting secretary was moving forward, I thought it was important that we use the Senate of Maryland's process to, one, make sure that the program worked, and two, do whatever it took to make it better, because that's what Marylanders deserved. When we started the Vaccination Oversight Work Group, when the acting secretary came to us week by week, in that first week, we had 15,000 doses going out per day. 15,000 doses per day. The 7-day average right now is 59,000 doses going out per day. One of the biggest challenges that we saw at the beginning was a lot of confusion, unused doses, things not happening. We pushed. We said there should be a centralized system. That was created. We said that there needed to be a single sign-up. And yes, there was pushback, but that was created. We hammered home that there was an inequitable distribution of vaccines happening. And the administration did put forward an equity task force and has moved forward, and I visited just last week in my own district with our Latino community, a very successful community site. Just yesterday, there were 74,000 doses of vaccine administered into Marylanders' arms. This is a 500% increase. I fundamentally believe it was this body in our advise and consent process that helped move the needle to get us there. But at the end of the day, the acting secretary was managing that process. And so I am casting a green vote because at the beginning of these, we said there is one thing that matters more than anything else. And what we saw at the end of this week is a record number of vaccines going into Marylanders' arms so that we can reopen our economy, get kids back to school, and make sure that all of us are safe. And for that reason, I am supporting the acting secretary and strongly encourage him to work on the issues that have been identified on this floor today, because we must get through this together. With that, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, nominee number 1 is approved. All right, next up, we have a finance report. This is report number 40. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 392, Senator Augustine, Electricity and Gas Limited Income Mechanisms, favorable with 4 amendments. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you. As amended, Senate Bill 392 requires a gas or an electric utility company to adopt a limited income mechanism to benefit an eligible limited income customer, subject to the approval of the Public Service Commission and other specified requirements. PSC must evaluate a mechanism based on criteria in the bill. A municipal electric utility may, but is not required, to propose a limited income mechanism to assist its eligible customers. The bill expands the support level for participation in the Electric Universal Service Program and the Maryland Energy Assistance Program administered by OHEP, authorizing assistance to customers at least 67 years of age who are at or below 200% of the federal poverty level, and makes additional enhancements to EUSP. Finally, the bill establishes a short-term work group on low-income utility assistance. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 requires rather than authorizes utility companies to propose limited income mechanisms and allows municipal electric utilities to do so. Authorizes PSC to designate broader eligibility criteria for the utilities mechanisms and establishes criteria for PSC to use when approving the mechanisms. Amendment 3 alters EUSP and MEAP eligibility criteria and program requirements. Amendment 4 establishes the work group described and specifies that OHEP must receive a certain appropriation in fiscal 2023, recognizing that the governor has included funding for the program in a supplemental budget and effectively requires funds already appropriated remain available until fully expended. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 4 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question is on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee, or the 4 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 392 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 460, Senator Feldman, Economic Development, Advanced Clean Energy and Clean Energy Innovation Investment and Initiatives, favorable with 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 460 requires the Maryland Energy Innovation Institute and the Maryland Clean Energy Center to implement an accelerator program for Maryland-based technology companies engaged in clean energy innovation. The accelerator program must feature seed funding, training, and developmental support for the companies. The Institute and the Maryland Clean Energy Center must also coordinate and consult with certain state entities as specified. The Clean Energy Center is designated as a state green bank and is as a financing authority is clarified as it relates to state entities. The bill provides ongoing funding for the Maryland Energy Innovation Institute and the Clean Energy Center from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies, makes clarifying changes to the role of the center in supported projects and expands the definition of advanced clean energy to include renewable chemical production. Amendment number 3 clarifies the total funding provided to the Institute and the center in fiscal year 2022. Mr. President, there was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes the minority whip.
Just ask the bill amendment lie over under the rule.
Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 811, Senator Hershey, Unemployment Insurance, Computation of Earned Rate of Contribution, Applicable Table of Rates, favorable with 2 amendments. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 811 requires the governor, based on the availability of qualified federal funds, to appropriate an amount of money to the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund sufficient to result in the earned rate of contributions for calendar year 2022 to be calculated using Table C of the Table of Rates. The bill further requires that the earned rate of contributions for calendar year 2023 will be calculated also using Table C of the Table of Rates. Amendment number 1 is technical and adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 strikes earlier provisions of the bill and substitutes the language described above. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion?
Mr. President.
Yes. Senator.
Just if I could very quickly acknowledge, I want to just say that this is an extremely important bill that came together as a collaboration of efforts between the governor, our president, and the Speaker of the House, also with a lot of input from the chair of the Budget and Taxation Committee, and especially my colleague from District 8, who serves as the chair of the Joint Committee on Unemployment Oversight. This bill basically says that we care and are concerned about the struggles that our businesses and job creators went through during this pandemic. As all of us know, we've dealt with a lot of unemployment insurance issues, and as times come, the unemployment insurance fund was depleted, and this has to be made up. So we are very thankful for the, again, collaborative effort of those individuals to use funding that, or hopefully be able to use funding that was made available from the federal stimulus package to supplement and supplant the money that has been lost in the fund. This will allow businesses, although they have to pay out of Table F this year, will be able to pay out of Table C for the following 2 years, which is a dramatic difference. And it's just to show that we support our businesses and job creators, and I appreciate everybody's effort to make this possible.
Thank you very much, Senator, and thank you for your efforts on this. Certainly have been talking about this since the summer, the concern about what would be coming down the pike. All right, any further discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 811 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reading. All right, let's go ahead and we've got a conference committee report, If the clerk could read the report. Oh, excuse me, we have the budget bill? 588.
House Bill 588, Budget Bill Fiscal Year 2022, the Speaker.
All right, Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your desks are the reports for both 588 and 589, the budget bill and the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act. Conference committees met. We were in large agreement throughout the process, so I believe it reflects essentially the budget that we passed out of the Senate several days ago. It's something I think we can all be very proud of, protects our values, ensures that folks are helped in the immediate, and that we set a stable course for our future. So, Mr. President.
All right, the Chairman of the Budget and Taxation Committee has moved the conference committee report. Discussion is on the report. So we are the process here, for a reminder, it's been a while since we've had some conference committee reports, is we will adopt the report, then we'll have to take up the bill on third reader, because of course every bill needs to have a third reading by a constitutional majority in its final form. So the question is on the report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The conference committee report is adopted. Could we ring the bells? All right, Senators. House Bill 588 is on third reading for final passage. Third reading, final passage. Any discussion? I think this is a vote folks do not want to miss. All right. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Has anyone wish to explain their vote, change their vote? If not, actually, Chair, in explaining his vote, just wants to thank the committee, the work that's been done. This is it's a big deal. This has been sort of like small ball this year to pass a budget, but of all the crazy things that have been happening, this is a huge deal, and to have a unanimous budget, it really matters. And this is a good budget for the people of Maryland. It's going to get people back to work. All right, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 588, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Congratulations to all members of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair. We are moving along. All right, we have a message to send to the House. Clerk will read the message. No? Oh, no message on conference reports. Look at that. All right. So we have the BRFA. So if we could read the bill.
House Bill 589, the Speaker, Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2021. The question is on the adoption of the conference report.
Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget and Taxation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Likewise, this bill, of course, makes the budget work, and the conference committee met, and the report is on your desk, and moved to support the committee's report.
All right. The chairman moves for the adoption of the conference committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The conference committee report is adopted. House Bill 589 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 589, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The FY22 budget is done. Congrats. That's great. Our official constitutional duty achieved. Okay. Good one. Good one. All right. Let's see. Where are we? We've got some third reading bills here. This is third reading Senate bills. Let's get these out. Calendar number 59. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 46, Senator Lamb, Crimes, Mitigation, and Defense, Race, Color, National Origin, Sex, Gender Identity, or Sexual Orientation.
Senate Bill 46 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 46, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 716, Senator Carrozza, Solid Waste Management, Prohibition on Releasing a Balloon into the Atmosphere.
Senate Bill 716 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes Senator from District 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I get up to talk about this bill. I understand why we're doing it. I really appreciate the senator, the sponsors' idea behind it, but I look at the issues we're trying to address, and we're dealing with releasing of balloons. Policing, COVID, and this is a bill we're dealing with, and it doesn't sit right for me in these times. And last night, after we debated my amendment and the other amendment, I was online looking at balloon companies, because to me, the way to do this bill is we go after the companies that sell them and say, hey, you need to put notification out there that if people are releasing a balloon, they can only use recyclable balloons with recyclable string. And that's what we do on other types of issues that we've dealt with, whether it was fertilizer, making the hardware stores advertise, because I thought that would be the best way. Well, I was looking at different balloons, and I saw one that I thought was cute, so I bought it. I brought it in here. I put it under my desk this morning, and it disappeared. Unfortunately, the balloon police got it. And I'm being serious. I did. It was a beautiful little turtle that I was going to hold up after we voted. Kind of a little levity, everybody laugh. But again, it was taken. He's gone. But I say that, and it made me think. Most people that release balloons, they do it for a reason. They do it when they're letting somebody go, a death. And if you think about this last year with COVID, we've had 8,134 deaths just from COVID. We're not even including everybody else that's died of natural causes, cancer, heart attacks, everything else. They haven't had funerals, most of them. Families haven't been able to say goodbye. And for some people, it's customary. They have a little get together, and afterwards they let a balloon go, and that's the visualization of the spirit going up into heaven. They haven't done it, and they can't. So now with this bill that we've got, what's going to happen is when somebody does that, balloon police will get them. They're going to have to go watch 6 hours or do 6 hours of community service, pay a $100 fine, and I just think it's wrong. And for that reason, Mr. President, I'll be voting against this bill.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Everyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 716, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 894, Senator Rosapep, Post-Crisis Job Act of 2021. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 894 is on third reading for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 894, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's take on one of our concurrences today. We've got this is the concurrence calendar number 7. Number 7. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 494, Senator West, Juveniles Convicted as Adults Sentencing Limitations on and Reduction Juvenile Restoration Act, JPR.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. As passed, the Senate bill increases the amount of time that an inmate who had been sentenced to life of imprisonment for a crime committed on or October 1st, 2021 must serve before being eligible for parole 15 years or its equivalent, considering the diminution credits to 20 years without consideration of diminution credits. The bill also provides that before an inmate is sentenced to life imprisonment, it must be paroled or must be approved by at least 6 affirmative. Actually, you know what, Mr. President, my apologies. This is the wrong report. So as passed by the Senate, this bill authorizes a court when sentencing a minor convicted as an adult to impose a sentence less than minimum term required by the law and prohibits a sentence to life without possibility of parole for such a minor. The bill also authorizes an individual who is convicted as an adult for an offense committed when the individual is a minor and who has been imprisoned for at least 20 years to file a motion to reduce the duration of that sentence, and authorizes a court to require participation in certain programs as a precondition of granting such a motion. The House amendment made technical changes and struck from the bill the provision authorizing the court to require participation in those certain programs. It was the committee's opinion to concur with what the House did by striking that amendment because the opinion of the committee, the judge already has that ability to make a motion, to hold that motion in abeyance, or to have that discretion. So with that, Mr. President, we have concurred with the House.
Mr. President.
All right. The chairman has moved for the adoption of the House amendments. Chair recognizes the senator from District 5 on the House amendments.
Thank you. May I ask the floor leader to yield for a question?
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
You explained that, but I'm just asking for clarification. So they stripped off the amendment that we had put on in this body regarding requirements for education requirements, or that was the amendment, right? That they've taken off.
Yes. So in committee, I think the senator from Baltimore County and the senator from Baltimore City ably explained that the judge already has this ability to do that, to hold that motion or that petition in abeyance, to make that evaluation and say, look, before you come here for this hearing, I'd like you to go ahead and do X, Y, and Z. So that was already something that the judge has the latitude to do.
Okay. That's the only substantive amendment, though, other than there's technicals, but that's the only main change.
That's the only change that the House did.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I will stick with my opposition to this bill. We obviously had a lengthy debate on it, but I did want to just clarify what the changes were from the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the amendments, all in favor of the amendments say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The House amendments are adopted. All right, Senate Bill 494 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 494, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right. Let's see. We've got a lot of work. Let's go ahead. I'm trying to make sure we don't have any more Senate bills. I just want to clear the deck of Senate. All right, that's all House. Okay. Okay. We have one Senate bill. Let's go to Special Order Calendar number 47. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 852, Senator Huff, Crimes, Penalties, and Procedures, Violent Firearms Offender Act of 2021. Bill is on third reading for final passage.
All right, Senate Bill 852 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion?
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Yeah, if the floor leader or the bill sponsor would just explain what this bill does. We've had this bill, I think it's been on the floor for 12 days. I've kind of lost track of all of it. So if they could explain it.
Bill sponsor, yield to explanation.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yeah, the bill is substantially similar to legislation that this body passed last year, 43-4, with the exception that I worked with the chairman, and there was a provision that made theft of a firearm a felony, which was removed, and another provision with dealing with bail would be removed. What the legislation does is, hold on, let me get my whole list here. So, for example, if a person is disqualified from having a firearm and they're called a second time, so the first time the penalty is currently 5 years, This is the second time you are a person who is disqualified, meaning you have a criminal record, you're not supposed to have a firearm on you. It increases to 10 years the maximum. We also, for handguns, we put the law in a similar statute as we actually just did for long guns. So for long guns, some of you may remember, we would say that basically you may not knowingly sell, rent, or transfer a long gun to someone if they're going to use it in a crime. This does the same for regulated firearms, that's handguns. It also closes a loophole right now in the law that if you commit a felony, it's any felony in the state, you are eligible for an enhanced penalty. It says that, unfortunately, the law right now has this odd thing in there that drug distribution is an exemption, so that closes that. Just to say any felony, use of a handgun, you would have an enhanced penalty. It says for technical violators that if you are on parole and you're caught with a firearm, that is not a technical violation. That's pretty common sense there. Under the agreement last year, we agreed to put a reentry kit into the bill for people that are recently released from prison. That's in there. There's a portion about appeals, which there was an elongated discussion on last year on the bill, and also allows increased penalties for repeat offenders committing violent crimes with firearms, and for individuals who repeatedly use a firearm, the commission of a crime of violence. So essentially, it is the same bill as we passed 43-4 last year, minus two provisions that were actually enhancements in it last year that have been removed.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you, and I appreciate that explanation. Having 7 kids of my own, one thing I try to teach my kids is balance in life. You could talk to them and they would say that's probably one of the things I tell them at least once a week. Look at a situation and try to have balance in it. And when I look at what we're doing this year, we started off in a bipartisan manner working on police reform. We understood that that was an important issue to the people, and we tackled it. How we're going to get to the end line is still up in the air, but we spent days, weeks, months putting effort into that. On the other side, you have the police reform. On the other side, you have the violent crime throughout our state that if you go out and talk to people, they say that's an important issue. We must deal with the crime. It's devastating to hear murder upon murder upon murder and shootings and shootings. And on this Senate floor not too long ago, last year, a year before, I can't remember, I lose track of time, one of our former senators said, Rome is burning. We need to take action. That was a pretty stern call to action. So what did we do? Last year, this body, late in the session, passed a bill, basically the one we have before us. Got over to the House and they took no action. Here we are a year later. Crime has not got any better, basically. People fear for their lives. It affects old people, young people. There's no distinction between the murders. And we had an opportunity to have a balanced approach this year. Deal with police reform. Check. Deal with the crime. Oh, wait a minute. Let's put that off. We had a bill hearing on this approximately a month ago. And as you all know, maybe not the public, but there's a crossover date which says legislation that's important to us, that's a priority to us, we get out before crossover so it can go into the House and they can have a hearing. And if it doesn't make that crossover, it goes into Rules Committee, which is very hard to get out. Not impossible, but hard. But at least we got this out here, I think, a week or so after cross-file. So I was hopeful. At least we're dealing with this issue. And I want to thank the governor who put forward this last year, and the minority whip's done a wonderful job, shown real leadership on this. And then I waited. March 22nd, excited to see it out on the floor. March 23rd, March 24th, March 25th, March 20th, and today. What's today, the 2nd? April 2nd. From March 22nd to April 2nd, this bill has been on the floor. Where's the urgency? Somehow I don't think there is urgency. Let's not be confused. While we got this bill on the floor, and the minority whip just talked about, we're dealing with repeat offenders, felonies. It's going to increase jail time. That's a good thing for these people. It's going to enhance penalties on repeat offenders. We've heard about redemption, and we've passed legislation dealing with that. And redemption is good. But those who are devastating our streets, who have shown no remorse, who continue to kill and repeat offend, they need justice. They need penalties. And that's exactly what this bill does. But you know what's going to happen? I've kind of read the political tea leaves. If this bill passes, we can all pat ourselves on the back. You know, Senate did their job as late as it was. But we all basically know it's going to go over into the graveyard called the House Rules Committee. And this bill is just going to die another slow death. And we're going to wait another year to bring it back. And quite honestly, the way the body has moved this session, I'm going to predict, and I hope I'm wrong, I'm going to predict if we put this in again next year, it will not make the floor. I have a way of sensing the body's mood. So this is our one time to move this bill, show that we need increased penalties. We need to have those who are repeat offenders pay the penalty for what they're doing in our society. The balance is we've passed other legislation dealing with the redemption side of it, the parole. We need a balanced approach in Maryland. Unfortunately, we've just seen one side of it. This is the chance to show we are balanced. We heard the other night that actually this is, old style. We shouldn't be doing things like this because this is no longer vogue, or I don't know what the specific word was. But putting repeat offenders in jail, well, that's just not the way we do it. We don't give them the increased penalties. I say we do. We have a right to protect the people that are on the streets. And this bill is an excellent piece of legislation, and we should move forward on it. I'm really sad that it took us 12 days from the time it reached the floor to actually get to a third reader. That shows our priorities. We have other bills here we are just passing through so they get up to the governor's office. So I know we have the will, we have the capability to move a bill when it's a priority. I hear words, but actions speak louder. This thing has been delayed, and we're sending it to its death over in the House. I don't think a single person in this body thinks this is going to go over there and pass now, this late in session. So with that, I would ask you to vote green and support our members in the community and do the penalties that are appropriate for those who commit crimes.
All right, questions on Senate Bill 852 on third reading for final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just very briefly, I rose a few days ago to special order this bill, and at that time I urged the body to vote against this bill. What I'd like to say now is I just urge the body to vote your conscience, but I do want to share briefly why I won't be voting for the bill. One of the reasons I won't be voting for the bill is because the bill is based on no data-driven evidence, and we've already passed legislation that creates a study of crime guns that we've spent a couple of $100,000 on that's going to give us some facts, some evidence, and some guidance into what we need to do to stem the tide of the violence in our streets. Now, those of us that live in the urban areas that are plagued by violence, there is no greater frustration than sitting there day after day knowing that you're in a position that people think you can do something about this problem and you can't do anything about it. You're not doing anything to stop it. We've done some great things this session, and what we did, we spent a lot of time and energy reversing some of the damage that we did, or not maybe us personally, but legislative policies and laws did over many decades. This bill, on principle, is a mini-me of the type of legislation like the 1994 crime bill that Congress passed that most have come to realize 25 years later was a knee-jerk reaction and the wrong way to go. I just submit to this body that this is another one of those kinds of knee-jerk reactions that isn't good policy. It is not an excellent bill. It's based on no evidence. There's been no evidence, no study, no research that has determined that these types of enhanced penalties actually do anything to lessen crime or gun violence. And finally, one of the other parts, it's not just only about an enhanced penalty bill, and it's kind of willy-nilly thrown together, enhanced penalty bill. No real thought was in it. In fact, if you look at the committee testimony, I think there were like 3 favorable testimonies. It wasn't like a major outcry from all our constituencies, like, please, 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 we must pass this bill. We need it to stop the violence. So, you know, the efficacy of the bill is being vastly exaggerated. But in addition to that, one of the things that really bothers me is that we dealt a lot with police reform, and I know most of us here think that it is really critically important that we honor what is in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And one of those things in the criminal law is the idea that there's a motion to suppress if there's evidence that's illegally obtained. And under current law, if evidence is illegally obtained, there's an opportunity for an accused, through usually counsel or himself or herself or themselves, to challenge that. And under current law, the law is, hey, if they lose, then the case proceeds, but oftentimes if they win and they can show that this evidence was illegally obtained, they're able to prevail. And some people call it a technicality, I call it the Constitution. And so what this bill does is it overrides that. It rewards the bad behavior. It says, hey, even if this is illegally obtained, we're going to give the state an opportunity to keep that person in jail for all of this time that it takes to go to the Court of Appeals to appeal that decision. And so I just say it's bad policy. Again, I no longer urge the body to vote against it. I say vote your conscience, but I'm telling you, we could do much, much, much better than this willy-nilly, feel-good, knee-jerk piece of legislation that really, really is not going to do anything to stem the tide of violence in our streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we asked for evidence, so I'm going to just try to lay some evidence out for you. In roughly the several decades up to 2014, this state and many others saw a rather consistent decline in the murder rate. Now, why is that so important, the murder rate? Well, crime statistics, unfortunately, are subject to fudging a lot. There's a lot of changes, so the murder rate is one of those. It's tough to kind of push away a bullet in somebody's head and say, well, he probably just fell off his bicycle and hit his head. No, you can't. It's one of those statistics that's just not so malleable as others. So the murder rate's a really important one to follow because, as you see, whatever it's doing, pretty much all the other violent crimes are doing too. So it's a solid statistic. So up from like the several decades up to 2014, we saw a consistent decrease in the murder rate. Then in 2014, we sort of adopted a policy of reimagining justice, reimagining criminal justice. And we've done a lot of different things that folks just sort of trying different things in sentencing, in policing, in prosecuting. And since that time, we've had consistently, 2015, it was, in 2014, we were down to 362 murders. Then we went to 538, 441, 481, 558, 492, 542, etc. Our policies of sort of excusing violent crime have resulted in over 100 more murders, primarily of young black men in this state. It's growing increasingly dangerous out there. We all hate to come out and take a hard stance against any person and to put anybody in jail. That's a really tough decision. But by ignoring the terrible impacts that violent crime is having on the communities, we are destroying those communities. We destroy the economy of those communities. We destroy just the very lifeblood of those communities as people are afraid to go out, as good people are afraid to go out, as old people and young people, and parents are afraid to let their children go outside and play in the streets. We've seen repeated instances where children are shot, caught in the crossfire of open street gun battles in our urban centers. Little girls, little boys, 8 years old, 5 years old, just gunned down just because the number of bullets flying in our urban center is so high. That's atrocious that you could have that many bullets flying, that children are randomly being shot when they're not even the target of the killing. So we talk a lot about, I hear it out there often about, we take violent crime seriously. This is the last murder. We're not going to stand for this in our community. Never again. Intolerable. Well, folks, this should not just be a slogan. We need to do things. We need to empower the courts and the police to go out, and the prosecutors, and so that they can have the tools to remove the bad guys off of the streets. Because that's what this bill targets. It's not targeting people who are first-time offender stuff. This bill targets the bad of the bad. So I urge you all to support the bill and vote green. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take this moment. I feel like I got to go back from like a flashback Friday. I think that when we talked about urgency, last year my colleagues from Baltimore City got together and looked at a data-driven approach with Senate Bill 929 and Senate Bill 708. And when they left these chambers, majority of this body, if not all of this body, moved in the same direction with that data-driven approach. Unfortunately, those two crime bills were vetoed by our governor. And when we talk about a sense of urgency, when they came back to this chamber to talk about that same sense of urgency, we saw where it was only us. This was a very divided issue, and it didn't leave divided when we left with this health pandemic. But there was no sense of urgency from my colleagues in reference to making sure that there's a coordinated effort from our state agencies, from our local agencies, to make sure that we handle crime. To take a look at our parole and probation, which is a state agency, to deal with our crime. They did not look at all of this, making sure that it's a neighborhood approach to deal with our crime. The VIT funding, and making sure that we can look at this from data-driven. We've seen where my colleagues said this is a failed approach. But it was done right here. But it was some of you that helped us get across that finish line. Not all of us have had a sense of urgency, and I wanted to remind our colleagues of just that when we vote on this bill, Senate Bill 8552, and I will be voting red as I voted last year, red, because we know that this does not work.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 4.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I know more than anybody being on JPR that crime bills and talking about this subject are emotional. But I mean, just to bring us back, I don't think it's fair to say 1994 crime bill. There's not a single mandatory minimum in this. And just so the body knows, I was actually the one on the conference committee when we did the Justice Reinvestment that got rid of mandatory minimums on drug possession. I worked with my colleagues, and I actually got rid of those. There's not a single mandatory minimum here. So the 1994 crime bill, that's just unfair. And if you look at the data that we're looking at, this bill is narrowly targeted at people who are illegally using guns and selling guns illegally in crimes.
And it also has, if you use an assault weapon in a crime, that's an enhancement. That's something we should all agree on. That's not a far-flung thing, but we do know the data. 81.4% of homicide suspects in Baltimore City had prior records. 44% of those suspects had arrests for prior gun crimes. And a number of these provisions, this is not just thrown together. We've worked years on some of these. The Senate President brought a bill in, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago, on one of these provisions that we began working on. And it created a provision that it's in this bill that if you knowingly transfer a firearm to someone, you get an enhanced penalty. The reason we did that is the problem, someone would say, well, I didn't sell him the gun, I just loaned it to him. And so the person would go and hold up a store or go shoot someone, and they say, well, they go back, they find the person that gave him the gun, they say, well, I just loaned him to him. And the Senate President brought in a bill, and actually I worked with him on that, and I said, this is a good point. We actually want to catch up these people, that if they're giving someone a gun to go commit a crime, it was a loophole they were getting through. They say, I didn't sell it to him, I just let my buddy borrow it. So we dealt with that. That's in this bill. And so what my colleague on JPR from Baltimore City brought up was the interlocutory appeals. To be honest, we already do that on drugs and everything else. We use it on multiple other provisions. It's a court process. The chairman of the committee and the senator last year had a very long debate on this, but it is a process. It just says, like drugs and so many other offenses for firearms, there's an appeal where they can go back to court and you don't throw out the whole case. That's all it is. It's something we use in multiple other cases. So with that, I'd be happy to, if there's any other questions on it. Like I said, we voted for it broadly last year. I would hope the body would vote for it. And the last thing I'll say on this was part of a package last year. And the reason that the governor was upset was because we held up our end of the bargain. There was portions of the bills that went through with the money and spending that, quite frankly, I didn't think were effective. But I voted for it because it was part of the package with this. And so I would just hope that the body would look at this. These are reasonable things to talk about people that are illegally carrying guns and in crimes. There's no mandatory minimums in this. I worked with the chairman of the committee. We removed the one felony, one of the felonies that was in there to make it more palatable. So if you voted for it last year, there's really no reason to vote against it this year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? Chair recognizes the senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is my first time rising on this bill. Here's why I'm voting for this bill, just to talk to the body for a moment. From 2013 to 2020, homicides have increased 34% in our state. We spend a lot of time talking about shooting. I'm talking about homicides from shooting. But non-fatal shootings in our state, we're not just talking about the city of Baltimore or other areas, in our state, non-fatal shootings have doubled in that 7-year span. Doubled. Homicides would be a whole lot higher if we did not have state-of-the-art health systems and hospitals in Baltimore and in other places in our state. I shudder to think how many more would have died. So often, the people involved in these shootings, it's a second time that they've been involved in a shooting, that they've committed a crime like this, when we can find them. This bill, very simply, just adds enhancements. So when you have done something like shooting someone, committing a crime of violence with a firearm, there's an enhanced penalty when you've done that a second time. There's other things in the bill too, as my colleagues have pointed out. There's some other really good things in this bill about closing loopholes, especially the drug dealing loophole, where it's the only crime where if you're using a gun while doing it, it's not automatically a felony, which seems ludicrous to me. But this is really the bottom line. We talk about data. We need to be sure if someone is a repeat violent offender. We're not talking about someone who, commits a crime where they steal something or they they push somebody down and that person gets injured or dies even. We're talking about somebody who's using a firearm purposely to hurt somebody multiple times. I think a sentence enhancement is entirely appropriate in that case. And you cannot tell me it will not help in places that are experiencing violence to have people spend some real time in prison off the streets if they're doing this multiple times. We're not talking about a first offense. So that's why I'm voting green on this bill. I agree with the minority leader that I wish we had moved this faster, but I'm glad it's on the floor today, and I'm proud to vote for it. And again, it's about getting at this real problem of, when we talk about gun violence, this is gun violence. It's hurting people. And it's hurting some of the most innocent and the weakest among us, as my friend from Harford County pointed out. So I would urge the body to vote green on this bill, and let's get it over to the House and see if we can make something happen.
All right, Senate Bill 852 is on third reading for final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Yes, Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to join the words of my good friend from the 45th Legislative District. I may be green to support the committee work product, but the notion that this body hasn't moved to fight crime is false. We have. We saw what was happening across our state, we listened, and last session we acted. But the governor, because he didn't get much, he got much but not all of what he wanted in his package, vetoed all our anti-crime bills, many of which were bipartisan, many of which were unanimous. One was to fund violence interrupters. The chair and I went up to Baltimore to walk the streets with the ROCA organization. They are doing God's work. They help ex-offenders, they squash beefs, they connect folks to education and services. They save lives. To say we haven't acted is factually inaccurate. This chairman has acted, JPR has acted, this chamber has acted, and we acted again this year when we overrode the governor's veto of our substantial and transformative anti-crime package. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further senators wish to explain their vote? Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City. Has 2 minutes to explain her vote.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want us to take a moment and look at the board. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Chair, in explaining his vote, is supporting the committee work product and the belief that obviously, certainly we want to target our repeat violent offenders. Here's the problem. We know this doesn't work well. At the end of the day, you can enhance every penalty. We could have you could throw people into jail for the rest of their lives. If we do not have trust in the system, cases don't get closed. The reason we have a homicide rate, the reason that we've been struggling with this issue is because people do not trust the system, and when you take justice into your own hands, that is the outcome that we are seeing. At the end of the day, the real work to enhance safety is to create trust and accountability in the system. That is why the work that we're going to do later today is going to be so critical. All right, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 852, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we have some concurrences. Let's do concurrence calendar number 11. I think that we may take a break after these. All right, clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 683, Senator Kramer, election law, voting permanent absentee ballot list, ballot drop boxes, and report, EHE.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 683 establishes a permanent absentee ballot list and requires local liquor board, a local board of elections, to send an absentee ballot to each voter on the list. It also establishes a process for approving proposed location for ballot drop box and adding ballot drop box under certain circumstances. The House amendments conform the bill to HB 1048, which is on the third reader list on today's agenda. It establishes factors that must be considered by local board of election in determining location of lock boxes, security of lock boxes, chain of custody of lock boxes. It limits the sending of absentee ballot applications to specified voters during certain years and requires the state board to contract for a usability study of the public materials used. Mr. President, EHE will concur with the House amendments on the Senate bill, and later today, this morning or this afternoon, hopefully we'll vote on the House version in the same posture. So move to concur.
Chairman moves to adopt the amendments. Are there any discussion on the amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 683 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 683, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 793, Senator Young, Frederick County, alcoholic beverages consumption permits, EHE.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee. Do we have this one? Concurrence on the House amendments? Do we want a special order this one?
So this is a motion to concur. There was two things. One, there was a technical adjustment to the amount of liquor they could have. It was 0.5, and they changed it to 1.5, and they also changed the fee. I move that we concur.
All right. Floor leader moves to concur with the House amendments. Discussion on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The Senate Bill 793 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their votes? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 793, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 821, Senator Hester, alcoholic beverages, manufacturer's license, and off-site permits. This is emergency bill, EHE.
All right, Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This, as you see, is a motion to concur. This is the sale by manufacturers and licenses and off-sale permits. It makes various changes to the regulation of alcohol beverages manufactured in the state. The House amendments conform the bill to its cross-file, which has already passed the Senate. EHE moves to concur with the amendment, with the House bill, Senate bill.
All right, Chairman moves that we adopt the House amendments. Questions on the amendments? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 821 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 821, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we have all the Senate bills out and taken care of. All right, let's do this. Let's take a break. We are waiting on a number of important bills from the House. They are working on them as we speak. Let's see the timing. What do we think? 5:30? 5:30? 5:30? Chairs, are we good with 5:30? Generally? I know. All right, we'll look at 5:30. Hopefully we'll have everything we need by then. All right, Chair recognizes the Chair. Let's do Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs for committee announcements.
Mr. President, Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs will meet at 3:15 for a hearing on local alcohol bills. 3:15.
3:15. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget and Tax.
Nothing this afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call the committee back to the committee room directly following our hearings here, our proceedings here today to do a concur or not concur with the House bill that came over.
Yep. Immediately following this.
Immediately following the adjournment or
I think we'll just recess. I think we'll recess.
Meeting following our floor session today.
Great. All right. Chair of Finance, any announcements for Finance?
No, none at this time.
Not right now? Okay. Any other announcements before? Yes, Chair recognizes the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is the day at the end of the week that we bid farewell to our student pages of the week. This is their second week, and we have had some of the most talented, bright, and wonderful young people who really have been impressive. And I know you've gotten an opportunity to meet with those students representing your district. So thank you, students, for being with us. We wish you were here in person beside us, but we have been pleased and hope that this has been a wonderful and valuable learning experience for you. It's been a hard week, but it just points up that the work of the Senate is intense, but it's good, and it is soul-searching a lot of the time. But it is an opportunity to learn and grow and share together as we meet the needs of our residents and all of the good people in Maryland. So I am going to share your name, and their pictures are right up there on the board, and then I'm going to turn over the second half to my colleague from Howard County. So, from District 39 Northwest High School, Jeannie Chang. From District 37B North Dorchester High School, Iman Chaudhry. District 28 Thomas Stone High School, Denise DeMontenac. From District 27A St. Mary's Riken High School, Jesse Harris Jr. From District 3A Oakdale High School, Chloe Kim. District 9B, Centennial High School, Christopher Ledard. District 30A, Severn School, Bella Lynch. District 40, Western High School, Arian Moore. My colleague from, well, give them a round of applause. You already started. That works. Thank you so much. And now my colleague from Howard County will introduce you to the rest.
Thank you, Co-Chair. From District 34B, Bel Air High School, we have Angelina Musini. From District 43, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, Malik Umaru. From District 2A, Boonesboro High School, Rebecca Ropka. From District 12, Notre Dame Preparatory School, Anna Seal. From District 27A, Gwen Park High School, Celeste Smith.
Senators, please give your attention to the senator speaking.
From District 8, Perry Hall High School, Rashawn Subidi. From District 23B, Bowie High School, Morgan Travers. And from District 37B, James M. Bennett High School, Hannah-Lee Swang. Thank you so much to all of our pages for your good work during a hard week.
Thank you so much, Pages. Thank you. You've seen some tough debate. These are some tough issues that we are trying to contemplate. And so we hope that as you follow in our footsteps, that you do it better than we do. All right. Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I don't know if this is a moment of personal privilege, but I just wanted to make everybody aware that every April 2nd of every year, it's World Autism Awareness Day. And one of the things, and I think it's embodied in our actions of this chamber and how we are in government, is that it's important not only to be aware of those individuals on the autism spectrum, but also move toward acceptance. And I think what you've seen that's reflected in our policies and our values is a move toward that as more people are diagnosed with autism, whether it's members of our family or friends that we know, we move into an area where not only those that are on the autism spectrum, but people that are different in general are accepted. And I just wanted to bring attention to those individuals who have autism, that we accept them, and that this is a good day to reflect on that. And Mr. President, in a lot of the actions that we've done this session, we've brought awareness, but more importantly, acceptance. And we share in making sure that we're lifting this community up and doing all we can to support their needs. So with that, I just wanted to take that time to make that reflection. Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues.
Thank you, Senator. All right.
Mr. President?
Yes, Chair recognizes Minority Leader.
Yeah, just a point of personal privilege. I wanted to thank the governor and especially the senator from Montgomery County on this issue. I have a niece who has autism, and I know you've been a champion with the budget committee and so forth to get more money in there for them. The state appreciates it, the family appreciates it, and I just want to publicly recognize what you did. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th District.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. In reflecting, I just want to apologize to the body and say that the minority leader was right in that some of my word usage was not appropriate. I want to apologize for that. And as I grow, I'm still learning. Thank you, sir.
Senator, I know the feeling very, very well. I know the feeling well. This is a hard time, tough. Everybody's tired, and this is we all care deeply about these issues. All right. Let's see. Any other announcements before we recess? If not, clerk will call the roll for a quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? So the clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, Senator Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate of Maryland stand in recess till later today at 5:30 p.m.
5:30. Without objection, so ordered. Stay safe, everyone.